A single vertical line found on the Venus Mount essentially accentuates, it enhances and boosts a person's most productive, constructive, and positive Venus traits. The ability to love. It enhances the potential for friendships, loyalty in affectionate relationships. It enables a person by promoting their most positive Venus traits, as in their character, their warmth, their charisma, their affectionate nature, their compassion, their empathy and sympathy. Essentially, this is a really strong sign in terms of the potential for a person in their relationships. It's a very productive sign. A person with this sign is certainly someone who strives for peace and wishes for nothing but harmonious relationships. Ideally, this needs to be completely unobstructed, clearly marked, and completely isolated. Dross found on the Venus Mount is not really something I enjoy talking about. It shows one love. It shows a person moving through life with only one person in their heart. In a sense, this person is their obstruction, is their anchor, I suppose. It's the one thing that weighs them down, that obstructs them from happiness, but at the same time, it's who they love. There's a sense of fatalism. They appear to be destined to one person, and as it sort of suggests, they are star-crossed. They are a star-crossed lover. This person has in some way danger around the love they have for a person. It will get them into trouble in some way. They may become hurt, and I don't just mean emotionally. There is a possibility to become physically harmed by this union. Now, it's important to understand that, again, this needs to be completely isolated, unmarked, for it to really have the meaning that I'm saying here. And also, other signs in the palm may well show protection. Protection is often seen in the form of squares and, support from family or friends as well can be seen in the palms, as well as certain sort of changes you might see as well. The fate line is something that I would look for in terms of corroborating and concluding more accurately. You can never um, conclude from one sign or symptom alone in palmistry. That's a golden rule anyway. You can pretty much take that away with you. It's very rare that you could ever really conclude from one sign or symptom alone. So I'm just trying to reassure those who might be watching this saying, well, I've got a cross. You might not necessarily have a cross, for one. And secondly, other signs in the palm may well show protection here, and as well as this, I'd obviously look at the attachment lines as well in the palms. Now, if you've got any questions, please feel free to email me or watch any of my other videos. This sign could well symbolize this person falls in love with this person and only this person and loses that person. Perhaps that person dies or moves away and they decide to never become involved with anyone else again. There's, as I say, fatality and potential harm, unless other signs protect, in which case this person may well be happy with this person. Stars in palmistry, if you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know they're very sudden occurrences. They are either extremely good or extremely bad. Either way, they are quite shocking. And a star on the Venus mount could mean one of two things, either a very good thing or a very bad thing, depending on where it's placed. Now, if a star is found closer to the thumb or at the center of the mount of Venus, this is a very positive sign because it shows an extremely positive union. A person has found their person almost suddenly, as though they were meant to have just sort of appeared in their lives and they've refound a person, their twin flame, their their person they have known from a past life, this feeling, their soulmate, the feeling that they've just found that person. Essentially, it's great fortune in matters of love. Now, if the star is found closer to the lifeline, or if indeed one of these lines is sort of almost touching but not quite, this shows how this person's life has been affected by a sudden change in matters of the heart. It's something, you might see a loyalty line turn into a star at the end, and this would indicate a person has lost someone they love tragically, shockingly, very suddenly, and it's affected their lifestyle as well. It's affected their environment and the way they live their life, which is why that star is close to the lifeline. It's a mark of sorrow if that's the case. It's a mark of devotion and loyalty, and how that person is affected by that loss. So it's quite a tragic sign. Stars, they're neither there's no middle ground with a star in palmistry, but again, I must stress here, it has to be completely isolated for it to truly be a star, and it has to have 5 or more points for it to be a star in palmistry. Now, if you're enjoying this video, please feel free to subscribe or check out my website, piscespalmist.com. I'm pleased to say we can move on to something a bit more positive. Triangles are always positive in palmistry, and they show fortune, but not through luck. They show fortune through hard work, study. They show fortune, prosperity, and material gain. And what this shows really, if you can kind of connect the dots here almost, it shows a person who has, especially if found on the left hand, a good innate and ability to aptitude to understand matters of the heart, to understand relationships, people's love languages, people who are highly emotionally articulate. And on the right hand, it shows that ability to materially gain from that advantage. You'll often see this sort of sign on the hands of therapists, marriage counselors, talk show hosts. Oprah Winfrey has this on her Venus mount, and it's a very fortunate sign. It's a very good sign, and there's no real reason why this wouldn't show a good person, a decent person, because in order to truly understand matters of the heart, you have to first uh, be a loving person, to be sympathetic and empathetic, compassionate. And so all of these key traits, you know, can't really be present unless we have that triangle. And that triangle essentially represents, hard work and study and that foundation. A person is enabled by their experiences, by study, and and by their strength of character as well, and just sort of who they are. And by utilizing these things, a person with this is fortunate, but not without hard work. A person with this sign, especially if found on the right hand, certainly has an advantage or an ability to gain materially from relationships. Through relationships, it could be a symbiotic relationship whereby a younger person has married an older, wealthier partner. Squares in palmistry are always protective, but the reason that we require a square in the first place is not necessarily good, so they're kind of mixed blessings really when seen in the palm. Whenever I see a square, I think, what's the cause of this? Why is there a need for this protection? A square found in or on the Venus Mount itself shows someone who's potentially living an isolated, an isolated lifestyle. There is protection here from the rest of the world. And a star, did I say star earlier? I meant square. A square seen here shows that isolation from society. I've seen it on the hands of people who have been admitted to psychiatric wards. I'd seen it on the hand of a person who worked on a cruise ship for many months at sea and was isolated from the rest of society. I've seen it on the hands of reclusive people. And a square found a bit closer, especially uh, attached to the lifeline itself, is much more likely to indicate hospitalization or being admitted to a psychiatric ward or potentially even imprisonment. Now, if this square is found on the left hand inside the lifeline, it shows that fear of imprisonment. It shows fear of isolation from society. If it's found on the right hand, it shows the potential for that to materialize. And it could also be seen that this is, a sign of a potential um, emotionally controlling, abusive relationship. Again, other signs in the palm will display or point towards the right direction. Essentially, this is what palmistry is. It's concluding from lots of signs in the palm. And the way to do it is essentially to pick out what really stands out to you and note down all the things that stand out most to you, and you'll get a sense as to what these things are after reading enough palms. It'll start coming to you. The language of the hand will start speaking to you, and you will be able to speak back that language. And once you've found those key features that really stand out, you connect those dots and they will tell a story. So that's essentially what the square means on the Venus mount. Grills in palmistry, or grids, this or nets, as sometimes they're referred to as a net, on the Venus mount, is not a good sign. Grills are never good signs in palmistry. It shows a blockage, an inability for the energy to flow. It shows several obstacles. Um, it shows how a person is trying to strive in an unfocused way with lots of obstacles and things getting in the way. And essentially, what this means here is an imbalance in the sexual psychological makeup of a person. It could show potential hormone imbalance, but what this most of all represents is, especially found on the left hand, is someone who is seeking to gratify their baser desires in ways that are potentially harmful or counterproductive. There's nothing wrong with a high sex drive, but how we satiate our desires, how we act on our feelings is what matters. And a person with this sign is far more likely to engage in activities that might well harm themselves or others. Essentially, it's a sign of overindulgence in sex in matters of sexual nature. They could well dispose of their own dignity in order to continually sort of gratify their baser desires. And I would highly advise a person with this sign to seek help. They may well be a sex addict, and it might well be getting them into all sorts of trouble. Stress on the Venus mount can be seen by these continual kind of horizontal lines that reach over towards the lifeline, affecting the life. One or two lines like this, are influence lines from loyalty, from a strong family connection. But when we see lots and lots of them, these are obstacles. This is stress and worry, and so essentially a grid here is sort of in part forming, it's showing us this stress and how there's how this person is um, bypassing, how they're dealing with this stress. The Venus mount is the mount of energy. Can be seen on the Venus mount, and it really shows us how we utilize our energy, how we project and um, and reveal our energy, how we express our physicality and our vitality and our constitution and our character as well, our charisma. And also, when looking at on the Venus Mount at the signs here, not only would I be looking at the attachment lines or relationship lines, marriage lines, as they're sometimes called, but also the girdle of Venus as well, because this is a sort of an extra art line in a sense. It's an enhancement of our emotional makeup. So thank you for watching this video on the 6 signs on the Venus mount. Let me know what your thoughts are from the best palm reader in the world. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed my soft British accent.